Hi, everybody. I'm Howard Cadenhead, principal at Folsom High School. I want to welcome you guys to Folsom High School. This presentation today is for ninth grade incoming students and families. And it's something that we normally do on our Link Crew Day in our theater in person, but this year, obviously, in distance learning format due to COVID. We want to make sure we continue this tradition because we hope that it's useful information for you guys as you come in navigating a new school. But we're very excited to have you. This is certainly one of my favorite times of the year as I get to meet all of you guys that we're going to spend a lot of time together over the next 4 years. And I know that you guys will be very successful and we're looking forward to it. I'm very confident you guys will enjoy Folsom High School. It's a great place to be. It's a pretty neat place for all of us. So we want to get you started off on the right foot. So I have a presentation for you today that I'll share with you. And then you guys can always follow up with the appropriate people or myself with questions. Part of the presentation today really is talking about joining our school in a traditional way. And I will give you tips and pointers for when we do come back that hopefully will be helpful for you. And then the other videos that I will share along the way related to distance learning hopefully will be helpful in that capacity. So let's jump right into it. Class of 2024, kind of nice, has a nice ring to it, but welcome again. Let's see if I can, there we go. I want to make sure that I introduce you sort of the structure of our administration and our staff and some important names. I, by the way, will share this presentation with you folks. I'll send it to you in a link and I'll put it on the website, but these are hyperlinks to the emails for these folks. So that if you're ever struggling to find any of them, they are on the website, but you can also refer back to this presentation and click on their name and email them directly. So starting with our administration building, we have our office, assistant principal's office clerk, Donna Thompson, who supports our 4 assistant principals, Ms. Sisson, Ms. Morales, Mr. Eklund, and Mr. Crannell. And we divide those up by last name. So students with last name starting A through D belong to Mrs. Sisson. We do cross over once in a while, so don't be surprised if you hear from other administrators. We certainly support and cover each other, when there's something important that's come up. But we also try to build a relationship with our students, and so we kind of know your story and you know a little bit about us, you're comfortable with us. So we like to stay with each other when we can, but we certainly will cross those lines alphabetically and support each other. So hopefully you know all of them, and I'll introduce those to you guys, those administrators to you guys in person. Ms. Thompson is in our office when you come in and greet our assistant principals anytime. And our assistant principal's office is the hub for a lot of different stuff. It's certainly not just discipline, it's student activities. Gosh, a lot of times it's club information, it's independent study packets, it's attendance information, and so there are a lot of reasons that you will interact with our assistant principal's office. So our school administrative assistant, she kind of runs the show, is Michelle Senior, and she's in my office, not our office here, together, and she and I work very closely together. She took the place of Sherry Graston, who was with us for, gosh, I think 14 or 15 years, and we were really excited to have her move over. Miss Senior was our associated student body clerk. She joins us now in my office as our school administrative assistant, and again, I'm Principal Howard Cadenhead. Okay, our counselors are also divided up by alphabet. Miss Brown has A through C, Mr. Addergen, Miss Deathridge, Mrs. Vaughn, and Miss Estrada. You can see all their alphas there. Our counseling center clerk, Ms. Cedarstrom, helps organize everything that goes on in that counseling center. Certainly helps with registration, schedule distribution, scheduling appointments with counselors, etc. During this time of COVID, really we're working largely through emails, but if you can't find an answer on the website and you're likely looking for something, you can always call and talk or email Ms. Cedarstrom as well. Our registrar, who really is sort of the person in charge of the entire registration process from start to beginning, although Miss Cedarstrom is also very much involved in that, is Miss Law. She is also the one who makes sure that our very official and legal document, our transcripts, are ready to go for students. And if you ever need a transcript or information about that, please see Miss Law. She works with a lot of our alumni on their transcripts as well. Our College and Career Center clerk, I'm going to move this around a little bit, is Miss Reed, and she is really the coordinator of all of our college and career information. She brings in speakers from the state college system, the UC system, private schools. She coordinates our typical college and career fair that has had over 100 different booths in our gymnasium and in Cordova's gymnasium in the past. We will probably look at that quite differently this year, but we have lunchtime, advisory, and student activity times presentations that you'll be able to join in our Teams network or Teams interface this year, our online interface, to hear more about colleges. Miss Reed is has a ton of information. She's a wealth of information. You're welcome to reach out to her if you have specific college questions, but you can also reach out to your counselors. They are your academic guidance counselors, along with the support of Miss Reed. Okay, in general, in our building up here, in the administration building, our general fund account clerk has kind of all the money outside of student accounts that she coordinates for the school is Miss Woodruff, and our student account clerk actually moved over from our on-site suspension room this year. Many of you know Miss Eichner, and so she is now taking Miss Senior's spot in the accounting office, involved in all of our associated student body accounts. So any money that students earn and make through clubs or activities all goes in that spot. Many of our it covers our athletics, clubs, like I said, a lot of different things. And so that's a big piece as well. Our attendance clerk is Miss Egan. She's actually supported as well by Miss Daniels, who works in both the attendance office and our health office, with Miss Lee, who is our registered nurse, who is, both she and Miss Daniels are incredibly important at this time, obviously with COVID, but they're always super important to taking care of our kids and making sure that Folsom High is a safe place. And sort of the face of Folsom High School, our administrative clerk is what I refer to that position as, but she's also sort of our reception person at the front desk of the administration building, and she's amazing. That is Miss Gibson, so she's at the front desk as well, and you can get in touch with her if you email her or give her a call. Our student activities directors, that role is shared by Mr. Castro and Mr. Mills. They're in charge of student government and all student activities. Athletic directors in charge of our athletics. Our main athletic director is Miss Finley, supported by Mr. Peterson and Mr. Plasek. And so you'll be hearing from them probably a lot more this year related to the rescheduling of our athletics to the spring. Especially when we get closer to that, it's going to be very busy. In general, talking about our culture, I think that the one thing I always think about our school is that it's a little bit of a college-like culture. By that I mean it's pretty laid back. We have a big campus. We're over 60 acres. I think we're close to 65 acres at Folsom High School, mostly an outdoor campus, which, despite the fact that we have about 2,600 students at Folsom High School, makes it seem not nearly so busy because we're so large, and we're really lucky in that regard. So we have a beautiful campus, a beautiful setting here with great facilities, and it really ends up being a little bit of a college-type culture during lunch times, passing periods, etc. That's really kind of a laid-back place, which is really nice. It's a place where you can really focus on your education and connecting with people without many worries. It is a safe, emotional, and physically safe place. Obviously there are moments we work with students and kids, but overall it is, compared to most schools and most cultures, it is exceedingly safe physically and emotionally at Folsom High School, and that's really, really important to all of us. Piggybacking on that, it's a very inclusive campus. So we're very proud of the diversity of our campus, the diversity of our student body. Many of our students come from around the world and represent all different cultures, religions, races, groups, socioeconomic groups. It's a pretty diverse place. I think many people don't realize that Folsom High School is as diverse as it is, but it's certainly one of our strengths, and it builds that culture that we have of inclusivity. We're definitely a culture of high expectations, and that's one thing that we talk about a lot. It is certainly important to us to maintain high academic and behavioral expectations across the board. high expectations within our visual performing arts, our music program, our drama program, drawing and painting, engineering, our mathematics program. Those are all led by people with a tremendous amount of experience, skill, expertise, and passion for kids and achievement. It's really unusual to have in one high school, in one place, so many talented leaders of programs with such high expectations and been maintained over such a long period of time. But that's a real important part of our community. And if you look around, again, there are plenty of examples of excellence around this community. A lot of our athletes and athletics, Folsom football gets a whole lot of press, basketball, etc., because that's just kind of the way society works. A lot of attention is paid to athletics, but boy, we have such incredible programs across the board. We certainly don't want any of them to be overlooked. Again, including in that programmatic excellence, again, I mentioned arts, music, drama, career and technical education. We have a wonderful CTE, or Career and Technical Education program here. That includes everything from media arts, computer sciences and programming, gaming design, digital art, and I don't want to leave much out, but I probably will leave something out, engineering in Project Lead the Way, and we have a new manufacturing or product innovation design and manufacturing program with a brand new multi-million-dollar building that was supported by our district administration, the community at large through Measure G, our bond, and our school board, and that comes online this year, and we're excited to get back in person and take advantage of those really amazing facilities that we have. So with extracurriculars, most people know about our athletics. We have a tremendous complement, full complement of athletics. Our clubs, if you click on this link, you can see our clubs. I think we were in the 40s in clubs last year. We have a tremendous number of clubs, student-led clubs. These are student-led. They certainly are supported and advised by a staff member, but we encourage students every year to find an interest in something to connect with their peers about. And if we don't offer it, then charter it. Just find a staff member who will support you, host your clubs, and come up with an idea. And through our Club Rush, which Club Rush really is that opportunity to talk to your peers and advertise your club. That's where you recruit your club members. And again, many of them are community service oriented, such as ours associated with Rotary and Lions Club, or Bulldogs Reaching Out, which is typically our largest club on campus. We call it BRO, Bulldogs Reaching Out. And our students go out and educate, many of you saw them in the past, elementary and middle school students about the dangers of tobacco, drugs, vaping, etc. So a lot of things to get involved in. I always say, if you don't find something to be involved in at Folsom High School that sparks your interest, you're not trying very hard. So just look around as those opportunities come up. I will say, students, dial in, please, to our Bulldog bulletin, our student bulletin, those things that go out, all of those things that happen like Club Rush, they'll be in the bulletin, and we're going to be sending those out to you guys, not just by video a couple times a week while we're on distance learning, but likely emailing those to all of our students through our new student email system. So sharing them directly with students, as well as putting them on the website so families can access. A few newish things, not brand new maybe a lot of them, but newish at Folsom High School. We have an AP capstone program, and that includes AP Seminar, actually an AP Research as well. I need to amend my presentation there. Those are 2 AP classes that allow students to achieve what's called the AP Capstone Diploma, and really rounds out our full complement of AP classes. We offer darn near all AP classes that you'll see on collegeboard.com, except for a few of the languages, which are really hard for schools to offer all those languages. But when you look at that complement of classes, we offer almost every single one of them. Our AP classes are largely open access to kids. So we kind of have a recommendation system, and our threshold that we recommend at is 3.0 college prep or above for our honors in AP. But beyond that, students have their right to waive themselves, or parents have a right to waive their students into an AP class. There are times when they do fill up, and then we have to kind of rank by grade level and so on. It doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen once in a while. And we kind of have to figure out, based upon the numbers, who we admit to that class that year or that semester. But other than that, our AP classes and honors classes are really open to students, okay? And we really would encourage you to push yourself and take an AP or honors class and see how you feel about it. AP advanced placement classes are college level classes. And then you take the AP exam at the end of the school year to see if you earn a passing score of 3 or higher to earn college level credit potentially for that passing score. So we can certainly give you more information later on about those AP programs. As I mentioned, we have product innovation, design, and manufacturing program now. You can kind of see down here in the bottom right, if I move this out of your way, I just took one snapshot on my cell phone recently of our new building with all of our CNC and lathe machines going in. One of 3 labs. That's just one of the 3 labs. We have a welding lab, woods lab, and a manufacturing lab in that building with 3 classrooms. We have a project lead the way, engineering and architecture and civil engineering class, and we have a manufacturing classroom. So 3 classrooms, 3 labs, and then we have an associated science lab that we're working to integrate the sciences along with these CTE programs, engineering and manufacturing and civil and architectural, yes. And we also are going to have some of our AP computer science classes down there in that building as well. We partner at Folsom High School typically with Challenge Success. I don't know how that's going to look this year in the time of COVID, but the Challenge Success program through Stanford University is an important partnership with us. We've worked really hard to teach our students about self-care, mindfulness about their limitations, their strengths, their challenges, the importance of sleep, the importance of scheduling themselves, free time, downtime. We talk about PDF, playtime, downtime, family time. So we don't want students who are so focused on one thing that they don't take care of themselves, that they don't find balance in their lives. We all talk a lot about the importance of balance with our students. It's important to be a hard worker, right, and take classes that challenge us and we grow from. But it's also important for us to be healthy and mindful of what's going on with our bodies and our mental health. And so we're trying to strike that balance, and there are a lot of things that I certainly could talk about at another time when it relates to choosing your classes and being mindful of the time that it takes to complete those classes successful, and how you balance that with, let's say, your church involvement, your service opportunities, your athletic involvement, your family time, time with friends, whether time to stay healthy and active, to get out and be active, whether it's riding your bike or playing a sport, playing soccer, playing lacrosse, fencing, whatever it is that you choose to do, many of things that our kids do. So Challenge Success is really us working with Stanford, in addition to talking about, from Stanford's perspective, the importance of how we as parents assist our students and schools assist our students in choosing the right college match, and how do we prepare our students, not just academically, but personally, provide them with the skills that they need to really work independently or live independently when they go off to school a few years from now. Because that's a giant shift for our kids, and many of them are really good at math, but do they know how to do their laundry? Do they know how to return an item to a store when they have to do that? Do they know how to navigate DMV if they have to register their vehicle and they're in another state at that time? There are all kinds of different life skills that we talk about as well. So these are important things to us because we want our kids to move on and be successful, not just from an academic standpoint, but a social and personal standpoint. This year we're also starting a diversity and culture council. We already have a student senate where we have one student from each PAWS class, which is every student's 3rd period class is their PAWS class, and we take a student from every PAWS class, about 90 classes, 93 classes, throughout the school, and we bring them together to talk about what's going on in school. What are any concerns that students have? We bring our concerns to them, and they take it back to their peers. We're going to have a separate functioning group that really talks about the diversity and culture of Folsom High School specifically. What is it like to be a student who is a second language student at Folsom High School, or a Muslim student, or a Christian student, or a Jewish student, or a Hispanic student, African American student, anybody who certainly is at our school, and what is that experience like? And it gives us a safe, important place for them to talk about some of those experiences. And we'll be working with that group this year and beyond. And we're going to start in a distance learning format with them as well by holding these meetings. So it's an important group to us to get rolling. We have PAWS here. It's a big part of our culture at Folsom High School. PAWS stands for Positive Achievement, or Personal. It should be Personal Achievement with Support. That's our PAWS. It's our advisory period that during distance learning is going to be every day, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And your third period PAWS is your PAWS teacher. Normally when we're back in school, we have block days on Wednesdays and Thursdays only, and so you'll have PAWS on those days each day for an hour. Now you're having PAWS 4 days for 30 minutes. So it's moderately equitable in terms of total time. During distance learning, as I said, Tuesday through Friday, it's self-directed academic time until really you prove otherwise that you're struggling to manage your time during PAWS. So you get to choose during PAWS times what you want to do with your time for the most part. So you can go see another teacher and get support from that teacher. You can meet with classmates in a class to work on a project. You can study independently for something at the time. You can go to a teacher and make up a quiz or make up a test and utilize your time to sort of manage your absences if you were absent any time recently. And really the system when we're back in school is a signature system or a stamp system. And so when you leave your class, you'll get your PAWSport destination. You'll write your destination, and your PAWS teacher will stamp it. And the teacher that you travel to, we call it travel, they will stamp it when you come into class, and we will expect to see those stamps in your PAWSport. During distance learning, it's going to be a little bit different, and we'll communicate the specifics of the accountability during distance learning. It's probably going to be a sign-in system instead of obviously a stamp system would not exactly work for us. But it is going to be a time Tuesday through Friday where you're going to be able to, many of the days, go to other teachers to make up content or quizzes or tests or ask for help, okay? Use that time wisely. That will be, if you're struggling, one of the first conversations that we will have with you as a student or your parents. What are you doing during PAWS? The other thing I would say for parents is you can always check, especially when we're back in person, to see the stamps in your student's PAWSport. You can see where they're going. Which teacher are they traveling to? Are they traveling at all? And if they're not using that time wisely, reach out to their teachers and ask them, how to support that. But there's accountability in the PAWSport. It is the planner that they will receive this week and next week when they're picking up their items. When we're back in person, you'll see the stamps if they're traveling and where they're traveling to. Okay. When we do come back in person, this is a busy place in the morning, Folsom High School, and so you want to make sure that you arrive early the first few weeks when we are navigating drop-off and pickup. Okay. I always tell families as well to try when you can to drop off maybe off campus, and students just walk across the street. So some families choose to drop off in the Safeway parking lot. Some families get here just early enough that it's not an issue, and some families drop off across from the administration building on Grover rather than getting stuck in traffic by coming into the entrance down there or up here by the administration building and snaking through the faculty parking lot, which is not a lot of fun when you're trying to get out at 8 o'clock in the morning, and it sometimes takes 15-20 minutes. So it's a crowded place. So I recommend dropping your students off. If I ever have to drop my students off in the past because I'm going off to a meeting, I'm not actually coming into the site in the morning, I always drop them off down the street at Grover, and then they just walk across to school. Um, our crosswalk in the front of school here by the administration building is, we call it a Las Vegas stop, but students are allowed to cross in horizontal ways because when it stops traffic, the city created it recently, about a year ago, so that it stops traffic all 4 ways. Nobody can turn right, nobody can cross at all while the students are crossing that crosswalk in all the different ways to get where they need to go. So it's a pretty safe place, fortunately. But as always, they need to be mindful of paying attention to the signage. So another practical tip, I would wait to buy specific school supplies until you hear from teachers. Sometimes kids go out and they buy a bunch of different things, my kids included, and they don't need them. So it's a little bit different than middle school. I think it's a little bit more on the fly. Teachers will have some very unique needs, especially with the visual performing arts at times, or the engineering classes. And so I would wait to hear from your teachers, get their syllabus or their course expectations, and see exactly what needs to be bought. Especially when we're in these distance learning times, we don't want you guys spending money on things that you don't need, and we're going to provide a lot of stuff to kids digitally that we did not used to. Ideally, you can email your teachers to communicate. Email also, as I provided those to you, counselors and administrators, that's the fastest way to communicate with us. Even when we're in class or during the school day as administrators or counselors, we can check our email in a regular way and get back to you as soon as possible. If it's a much more in-depth, longer conversation, happy to have you give us a call. There is an expectation for us internally that we will return phone calls, return emails within 48 hours of school time. So if you email us on a Monday, you can expect to hear back from us by the end of the day 2 days later, which would be Wednesday at the end of the school day. If you email us on a Friday, you can expect to hear from us by the end of the day Tuesday. In a practical way, you will probably hear from many of us right away, or at least within the day. But there are a lot of times and a lot of reasons why that may not happen, myself included. Like starting the school year off right now. The amount of emails that our teachers get and that our administrators and counselors get can, during certain times of the year, really be daunting. And so we do set up that 48-hour expectation of school time. Let's see. I would please, really work with your students. You know them. I think there are many times our students are capable of things that sometimes we think that they're not, but certainly 4 years later when they leave, we're typically really pleased and impressed with how our students communicate with our staff, our adult staff, and the ways that they self-advocate. They've been amazing for me and with our administrators and counselors since we've been on distance learning. Just in terms of learning to write an email and identify themselves, sign their email, introduce themselves in an email to the adult to whom they're writing, use professional language, and communicate back and forth with myself and others. Those are incredibly important skills that even a ninth grader is more than capable of. Most ninth graders of navigating that process, finding the email. And it certainly is a great example for you guys to have them copy you. So you're part of that conversation, copy you on those emails. But we don't at all push that because we're not trying to communicate with parents. But we do want to teach those skills to our kids, as we talked again about being college ready and being comfortable walking into a counseling center and making an appointment, or emailing a principal or a counselor or a teacher and advocating for, hey, I think there might be an error with a grade that was placed in the grade book. When we can make them responsible for reaching out to us, I think that that's an incredibly teachable moment. And also, it allows us to build a relationship and trust with them by responding appropriately and in a timely fashion. They don't realize how important they are to us at times. And so, again, really important that we ask them to do that. I expect students to download the PowerSchool app and monitor their own grades. I think that it's an incredibly important thing for students to do. We, again, as parents, I believe, should be monitoring that. But students should primarily be responsible for monitoring their own. I advise parents a lot of times to not really get overwhelmed. Do not allow themselves to get overwhelmed by checking PowerSchool. I'll give you an example. PowerSchool, you can set up alerts that every time an assignment goes in, it will ding your phone. That talk about causing stress and anxiety for yourself and your student. You know, how have things changed in our world since many of us, I'm 50 years old, but since I was young and many of you were young, and even, younger people than that, we used to mail home classroom grades. And so we really had that conversation with our parents when those were mailed home. That was every 4 weeks or whatever it was at that time. We have students sometimes now who are taking a test in second period, and their parents are emailing them third period saying, why didn't you do better on that test? And that's incredibly anxiety producing and stressful for our kids, that they're on 24 hours a day on alert. And so I certainly respect and understand monitoring our kids, expecting them to be responsible. I would highly recommend setting 1 day a week, one time to review PowerSchool with your student. And the student knows that, let's say it's Monday night at 6 o'clock, Monday night when you guys come home, we're going to look at PowerSchool together, and you tell me what's going on here, and let's talk about that. And consequences are appropriate when they're not taking care of their responsibilities. But I would highly, suggest to parents that you make that 1 night a week and not 7 nights a week, because your relationship with your student is much more than just chasing them down academically. It's important to also be mom and dad and enjoy your time together without that anxiety around academics. So you all have your own family cultures around those things, but those are little tips and things that we've learned from challenge success and just experience in working with kids. Okay, when you have academic concerns, your student does, they should start with their teacher. And again, if you need to reach out to the teacher and bridge that communication, please feel free to do so. But it would be great if kids would start with their teacher, and you can monitor that conversation by being copied on that email. Again, another skill, knowing who to copy. Athletic concerns, start with coaches. Behavioral concerns that really are outside the classroom setting, that don't involve the teachers, start with, if it's in the classroom, the teachers or the assistant principals or vice principals. If you have that concern, and your students are welcome to email them directly, and they do. If they have a concern about something that's going on campus, our students are really engaged and really protective of each other. And if somebody's not being treated right, they email us and let us know, hey, so-and-so's not being treated right. This is what's going on. And then we make sure that we wrap back with them, but let them know, absolutely, we're on it. We're going to talk to everybody involved and follow the right path. We tell students all the time as well, it's incredibly important that you remember this as parents, that one of our top concerns as educators is confidentiality as it relates to our kids. And so when we do follow through on behavioral concerns of any kind, we cannot share the outcome of a behavior application with anybody. So we can tell students, hey, we did investigate this, we've absolutely followed up on it. Consequences, appropriate consequences were applied, but we can't say specifically what those were, and that can be frustrating to some kids. And it requires a lot of trust on our part to make sure that we do follow through with these things. But a lot of times there are consequences that are applied that don't include removing students from the educational environment. And then it's not as visible to their peers. And we talk through that. There's a big range sometimes of appropriate outcomes. So again, kind of coming back to behavioral concerns and contacting assistant principals, and I expect our assistant principals to update kids through the process. Even those who reported it to us by email, we wrap back to them at the end and say, I just want you to know this has been handled. All those relationships and the trust is really important to us. Please know the academic intervention strategies that we have available to you. I could talk for an hour just on that. But if you read your PAWS report, there's a flow chart that's nice. What if a student is struggling in one class? What if a student is failing a class? What if a student is failing multiple classes? Then we try certain things, and what are the expected time frame on those interventions and attempts before we move on to the next level intervention. So that's all laid out to you. In the PAWS report, in the student PAWS report, you can ask to see that. They're being given that again as they check out their textbooks and Chromebooks this week. I already talked a little bit about using PAWS effectively. That's incredibly important. Please take a look at the dress code before we do come back. Our dress code is non-gender specific, but it is very simple. And if you take a look at it, we always kind of joke about the visual that we use, just describing that anybody who has a top has to have straps over the shoulders, and it has to cover certain parts of the body, but we keep it really pretty simple. I do want to emphasize the dress code policy that we developed was developed in concert with our kids. And so they went out to about 5 or 6 area high schools, brought back dress codes, said, here's what we'd like to see, here's what we can live with. And as administrators, we went back to them and said, okay, we can live with all of these things, but we have to talk about this. And so we got to the dress code policy that we have now, and I think it's been a really good one. We try not to interrupt school day when we have a dress code violation. We always handle it very subtly. If I'm on campus and somebody has, their blouse or their shirt is not meeting their shorts and they have a bare midriff, I'll just subtly say to them, hey, kiddo, come here. You're out of dress code violation because of this. I need you to go up to the assistant principal's office and get a shirt. We ask them to change. We do have shirts, PE shirts and otherwise. They're not at all embarrassing. They simply are Folsom High School shirts and many of our PE shirts that we order. And, we certainly just subtly ask them to go in the restroom and change, and they can go back to class. Please look at our academic dishonesty policy. It's probably the most complex policy that we have at high school. It covers a lot of different situations, but the reporting policy on academic dishonesty and the levels of academic dishonesty are really important to know. And talking through kids in our digital world today, what it looks like in terms of plagiarism, copying, collaborating, those things are important that we do that with transparency. Kids do that with transparency, that they don't represent others' ideas as their own. Those are important conversations to have, and as parents, you guys need to be aware of those as well. We certainly want to hold kids accountable here when the stakes are lower, rather than having them go off to a university and violate the academic dishonesty policy where they could potentially be dismissed from the university. Okay. All policies for our school are listed in the PAWS board, so you can flip through that with your student as well. If you follow this link, it's going to take us a day or two to get the digital version of our PAWS port, but in a few days we will have the most up-to-date PAWS port posted on our website as well if you follow that link. One of the great ways to stay up to date with us is to sign up for the Bulldog Bulletin email newsletter. You can opt out at the bottom of this newsletter at any time you wish. But we put tons of calendar events, college visitations, college presentations, registration information, classroom signups. I mean, so many things go into this. I'm sure athletic updates. Please sign up for this bulletin. We try to pull everything together culturally into this space. Ms. Eichner has done that now for us for a few years and does an amazing job. So it's a great bulletin to sign up for. Tips that students leave for students. This is one of my favorite things. A few years ago, our senior students, who were our Link Crew advisors, wrote down a list of advice for the younger kids, and you can kind of see this here when I just leave this for you or distribute to you later on. But I'll summarize them here. Our older kids tell our younger kids, get involved, and obviously it's important for you as parents and us as adults understanding. It's easier said sometimes than done, but find something small. Find a club, find an activity to get involved in, give it a shot. And because having that peer group in some capacity with something in common is really important for kids. It's those people that you have lunch with, it's those people that you meet up with in the quad during our transition times. That's the support group. So get involved, please. That's the connection to school. Ask questions, ask for help, obviously. Don't be shy. Raise your hand. Talk to your teachers. I think we're going to break down some of these barriers in our distance format because, oddly enough, some of our kids who feel awkward about some of those questions, asking questions and identifying themselves in a traditional sense because they're sitting next to 34 other kids, in this sense, behind a screen, feel a lot more comfortable. And so please ask your students if they're asking for help, if they're asking questions. And again, PAWS is a great time to go ask for help from your teacher. Balanced grades, fun, PDF, playtime, downtime, family time. We talked a little bit about that. Even our 12th graders giving advice to younger kids said, again, balance. When we come back, and it is one of the things that I definitely will miss, and I use this example, our dog pack at football games, can be 500 and 600 kids, and it's just a giant, fun event. It's not about the football. We love football here, but it really is about the community. It's about coming together. It's enjoying each other. It's about music. It's about all kinds of stuff. It's about dressing up. It's, planning for that Friday night. But have fun. Enjoy yourself. Our homecoming dance last year, we had 1,800 kids in our gymnasium. Go to a couple dances. Again, get involved. Communicate with people and be friendly. You're going to find people here, take some risks. They're incredibly friendly, but you've got to be willing, certainly, to have conversations and put yourself forward. Find 2 study buddies per class. That's great advice that our kids left their peers. So when you're absent, we're going to talk a little bit more about absence management in the future, but you really need somebody in your class who can tell you what you missed. Over distance learning time, it's going to get a little bit easier, and hopefully as a staff, as we develop more of these digital tools, whether that's instructional videos or Google Classrooms, some of these materials will become a little bit easier to get your hands on, especially per learning target, to say, I missed this class. In this class, we covered these learning targets. Here are the materials. Here's the instruction. But your study buddies in those class, you can text them and just say, hey, what did I miss today? And that's a great resource as well. Get involved in something that you didn't think that you would. Get involved in cross country. Get involved in, Bulldogs reaching out and teaching younger kids. That's a great cause. Go to dances, enjoy food together, go to Starbucks and sit together when we can do that safely, obviously. Have fun, meet up with friends, enjoy yourselves. We want this to be a fun experience for you guys, and connect with your teachers and staff. I always challenge kids, incoming freshmen, stop me, email me, introduce yourself, and our incoming 9th graders are really, really good about that. As administrators, it's important to us to be out with our kids and be around them, and I want to get to know them. There are a lot of them, but I love when they teach me their name or they tell me something about them that I can remember. Those are important moments, and we want to make those connections with kids. Don't procrastinate, which is easy to say, difficult to do, but it's probably more about scheduling yourself on a nightly basis to take care of your independent learning or your homework and stick with that and creating routine. I can talk forever about getting sleep and the importance of that. I will tell you very quickly that our students at Folsom High School report on average they get 6.25 6.25 hours of sleep per day. That's not nearly enough. Teenagers should have 9 hours of sleep a day, not less than 8 hours of sleep a day. I'm going to say something that might seem a bit blasphemous, but it is not. There are times when you have to stop doing your homework and stop studying. Sleep is that important. You will not be able to study effectively or recall effectively when you get into class if you do not have your rest. So it won't matter. You'll be studying for nothing. Our kids tell younger kids watch traffic. That is important. There's no doubt about it. Our student parking lot is a busy place at the end of the day. Crossing the street, watch the signs, be patient. We want everybody to be safe and careful. Don't get picked up in the parking lot, which is something I already told you. Certainly some students still will, depending on your timing, but it is certainly an option to go somewhere else. Don't compare yourself to others, which again, in the world of social media and where we are today, it's really challenging to do. But you are unique and you are incredibly important. Even our students, when they're graduating as seniors, recognize, don't spend your time comparing yourself to everybody around you. You are your own person. And we value that, and we want you to be who you are here at Folsom High School. It's a place where it's safe to do that, which is the cool thing about Folsom High School. Don't try to be somebody else. Make friends the period before. I'll tell you a little bit about that. That's a funny advice. So let's say that you have second period math. What the seniors are telling you is make friends with somebody in an earlier first period math class that are taking the same class. Why? Because if they take a test and you don't have the test until the second period, they can tell you a little bit about it. So I'm just being transparent. I know that teachers may not love that, but we know it happens all the time. So what they're saying is make friends from the period before you go to whatever class so they can tell you a little bit about what you're going to step into that day. I would say that used to be a little bit more important. We certainly don't do rarely any pop quizzes these days. That's just not great practice. So you typically will know when a test or a quiz is coming so you can prepare for it. We're not here to surprise you. There will be some things certainly in terms of formative assessment that will happen that you didn't necessarily know was coming. But that's their advice. Eat. Be healthy, obviously, all those sorts of things. I think that it's amazing how many high school students do not eat breakfast, including, by the way, my own children. But they're old enough, I don't need to be feeding them breakfast anymore. That's kind of on them. But please eat in the mornings. Certainly combined with your sleep, it can be really important to being prepared and getting through the day. Other advice for parents, encourage, again, your students to get involved. This is coming from kids. All the things that we talked about, encourage them to pay attention to the daily bulletin, set those expectations for academic, expect your academic and attendance expectations, but maintain your relationship, by really identifying when you're going to have those discussions and just being consistent about your expectations and the consequences. Ask specific questions, ask your kids, tell me something funny that happened today, tell me something you learned today. When we ask our students, how did you do on that test? It sends a very clear message that what is important to me is the grade, not the learning, not the experience, not the whole picture. It's simply what you got on the test. And so I think the way that we phrase our questions as adults for kids tells a lot about our values. And I would say as well, I think that this is really important advice from my perspective. Be intentional about how you speak about school, the school experience, the teachers, the coaches, etc. If when kids come home, you speak in negative words and negative ways about school, if you speak in negative words, negative ways about teachers and coaches are a great example, clearly that coach doesn't know what she's doing, you should be playing more. I don't know why they put so-and-so in today. I don't know why they didn't call this play. Those things are incredibly kids walk away and that becomes their experience. Something that I remind parents all the time, and I have to remind myself as a parent, by the way, of 3 teenagers, is that it's their experience. And it's going to be unique. It's not my experience. It's going to be different than what I had and probably different than what I thought the experience might be for my own kids. And they're going to have relationships with their peers, their teachers, and their coaches. And the things that I say profoundly affect that. So as a parent, I would ask you to consider maybe asking your student how they felt about the game. How did you feel about the game? What did you think? If they express that they have, questions and concerns about their coach, I would ask, how do you want to address that? What's the best way to do that? Has your coach taught you the appropriate way, to bring that to his or her attention? If they haven't, maybe I'm going to coach you on that. Make an appointment to see him. Don't do it during the game for sure. Don't do it during practice, but ask to see them after practice in a one-on-one situation. If they can't seem to make time for you, I'll get involved as a parent. But they should certainly make time for you to have that conversation. Same with teachers. And again, I'll say it one more time. The words that we use as adults, the words that we use as parents profoundly affect the experience of our kids. And we need to be mindful of that. Okay? Again, practicing good sleep habits to maintain physical health, mental health, memory, learning, and relationships. We have learned a lot about sleep and lack of sleep affecting anxiety and stress, by the way. So when we really look at the mental health, the effects or sometimes students struggling with mental health, I think the first thing we likely should look at, and by the way, difficulty with learning, is are they getting their sleep? A couple pieces of advice for parents, and I will share these with kids throughout their time at Folsom High School. Parents, remove electronics from the room, especially their cell phones. I know that can be a battle, and I've had a lot of parents talk to me about how that's gone, and they've taken that on. I took that on as a parent. I'll be honest. I took that on for my 9th through 11th graders, and then when they got to 12th grade, I said, I'm going to treat you like a young man, happen to be boys, and if you can manage it yourself, manage it. If you can't, now I get involved and I'm going to take it again. But for me, I had a basket in my bedroom every night, and the phone was in the basket by 9 o'clock. I had a charger in the basket plugged in. So they plugged it in to charge, they turned it off. They had a timer on their phone. They had to bring it to me by 9. If they did not, then they lost their phone the next day. I wasn't discussing it. It just was that way. They turn it in by 9, and there we go. They get up. Sometimes they get up at 6 in the morning. They come in my room. They get their phone, and they get in the shower and get going. But it was a way to at least unplug that from the room, and teach them that habit and how important that can be, when they're younger. If they manage it well, as I said, as they get a little bit older, that's a bargaining chip. But I would consider doing something like that. Afternoon activities, get involved in afternoon activities, get sunlight in the afternoon, help kids sleep and fall asleep at an appropriate time. Find a routine, stay with the routine. If you go to sleep at 11, go to sleep at 11. If you go to sleep at 10, go to sleep at 10, and try to keep that consistent. This late night until 2 in the morning one night, because they're up studying or talking on their phone or texting because they have a conflict with somebody and the phone's in their room, can be incredibly disruptive. I'll ask kids to avoid caffeine after 2 o'clock. Studying outside their bedroom as well is good advice. The bedroom is for sleep. Sometimes we have to use it as our study area. I'm not naive about that. But when you create another study area that we can study at, and by the way, you as parents can kind of see some of that happening and observe and support, then I think that that's a good tactic as well, when experts will say that when you go to bed, it should be to go to sleep. And so creating that space is important. A hard limit on studying, again, because it can be counterproductive at some point. And I think one of the things through Challenge Success that's incredibly important is discuss what success means to your family. Our kids have told us over and over again that success for them, if we ask them, what is your family, what do your parents think categorizes a successful student or you, when will they think that you're successful? In many cases, they'll tell us that I get into a good university, and they'll define that as UC, Stanford, Harvard, Cal Poly, some UC Davis, places that might be within their reach but might not be within their reach. Or they may talk a lot about financial success because it's their impression that what we want as parents is for our kids to be incredibly successful financially. And while the financial success is important for a lot of reasons that we all know as adults, do we want that to be the primary driver of our kids' measure of success? And whatever that is, and I'm not saying any of those things are right or wrong, I think your students should be able to know what that means for them. How do you measure that, and what are mom and dad expecting from kids in terms of becoming successful? Because if they create their own expectations and don't talk to you about it, you have no idea what they're going to have in their head. So it's a great conversation. Ask, again, questions about their day. Limit the times that you discuss academics we talked about, and expect students to communicate with adults. So that's a lot, and there's certainly a lot more we can talk about. That's a very quick sort of drive-by version of tips to getting started, and we'll try to communicate with you guys as parents and students as we move forward. And we look forward to building our relationship with you guys and communicating with our students and getting to know them a little bit here. Even in distance learning, it's kind of exciting to do it in that format, and to the challenge of staying connected and building community and culture until we get back together. So we appreciate you guys, and look forward to meeting you guys in the near future. Don't be afraid to reach out, okay? Go Bulldogs.